Welcome in, folks, to another episode of the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, your one-stop shop for enjoying a cold beverage and listening to our ice-cold basketball takes. Everything NBA all the time right here. Today, we got some news to go over. We will talk about the state of the NBA right now. Pretty scary stuff. A lot of our favorite players sidelined, a lot of madness. COVID is just not slowing down. And we will talk about some Eastern Conference contenders, pretenders, and two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and a little bit more. Jake, how we doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Like you said, it's honest all of sports right now, especially besides, football once a week, they're getting away with it with the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
But the NBA, NHL, we're gonna be talking about it, I think, for the rest of the year. So we wanted to get into that. But let's start with the news and notes. And we're not starting with good news for me,
bad news
or at all, but a big news in the Eastern Conference and kind of is opening up our Eastern Conference discussion here. Ricky Rubio last night tearing his ACL for the Cavs.
Brutal.
I guess I'll just touch on it for a second. Watching the Cavs, it's obviously a huge loss. They've already lost Sexton for the year. So two guards hurt already. Me and you were shooting the shit before the show. It's so hard to even imagine trading for somebody right now at the state of the league as we get into it with guys getting signed to contracts all over the place, whatever. So a tough blow for the Cavs. Donnie, is there anything can I look forward to it? Do you think the Cavs are still good enough to stay afloat in the East here? What do we think?
Yeah, I think one, they are. I think they have, pretty solid depth, and the young core on this team is pretty insane, just between Garland, Mobley, and Okoro. And I mean, you're not even taking Sexton into account there, obviously, him being out for season as well. But I mean, at the very least, I think the Cavs will hang around, and that they have enough. Oh, and Jared Allen, of course. How could I forget about him? But yeah, I think they're good enough to hang around, especially the way the Eastern Conference has looked this year. I mean, there's the top teams in the East, and then kind of just everyone else right now. So I think they have enough to hang around, and also at the very least, even if they aren't able to do that, I think this is a hell of an opportunity for Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. Garland's kind of already put his skills on display quite a few times this season and even last season. I know you've mentioned a couple times, even guys like Steph Curry are on notice about Darius Garland. I think
for sure
he's starting to get some of that national attention. And then this is a huge opportunity for Mobley, in my opinion, to do the same. I mean, the way the Cavs should look for the rest of the year is they kind of have nothing to lose. Just they already have to get over this injury adversity that they're going through.
Yeah.
It's a pretty new look team this year. Why not just give the keys to these young studs that you have on your team and,
for sure,
just kind of hope for the best. So in that sense, I think there's some bright spots.
What's wild, though, is the injuries that happen to this team are, of course, the two guards when they have 17 bigs on this roster that are waiting to be utilized. And they've done, we made all the jokes about it at the beginning of the year, and it's actually worked out great because Mobley is just a freak. But now it doesn't, you're just looking at depth on this roster, and I'm just imagining a lineup of four bigs and Darius Garland on the floor at the same time, or Mobley gonna play some two guard or something. Who knows what the fuck's gonna happen?
Put Taco
it's gonna have to get crazy. Taco at point's been my dream lineup the whole time. You get Taco at point, you got Mobley at the 2, we got Laurie at the 3, Kevin Love at the 4, Jared Allen at the 5. No one's scoring on that lineup, bro. No one. All right, let's get some good news though. LeBron James reaches 36,000 points last night. He is the first youngest player to reach 36,000 points. ESPN Stats and Info tweeted out. Did you see this? We retweeted it from our account.
I did see that.
He's from 1K to 36K. He is the fastest person to reach that amount of points, and they typed out every single one.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm reading through. I was like, is there one that's
they said every round number milestone is how they worded it.
It was so bizarre. But this note I'm so happy you put this one in here because I saw this, and I think this is the most interesting thing about this season that I've seen. LeBron is leading the league in 30-point games this season, has only played in 23 games.
That's
32-11-11 on Tuesday night against the Rockets, and they needed all of it because they only won by 10 in Houston. But how fucking wild. We've been saying all this stuff about LeBron, talking crazy about best player in the world. He doesn't belong in that conversation. And this is what he's doing when he's on the court. I mean, it's not relaying to the court very well, and wins a lot right now for the Lakers. And I'm the biggest LeBron stan in the world, so I don't want to sit here and just gush about LeBron, but I've been down on the Lakers, I think, a lot this year. This is kind of fucking crazy to me that he's got this many 30 games, not even just with the Ross, just with the whole complexion of this team and all the talk we've had about it. Not what I would have thought. But anyways, I think that's a great thing for LeBron and great thing for the league. I mean, it's just to see this dude still doing what he's doing right now is kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement there, and I think the criticism that we've given the Lakers is absolutely fair, just as a
Very
team
fair.
this year.
Yes,
and obviously, I love to rag on LeBron as the next guy, but I never ignore stuff like this. Like that is truly incredible. 23 games played out of. It's probably close to 40. I don't know how many exactly the Lakers have played this year, but somewhere in the mid-30s of games. He's only played 23 of them and somehow is leading the league in 30-point games. Pretty spectacular. But you mentioned I feel like that's what we have to come back to. Like the Lakers kind of needed all of that on Tuesday.
They needed every second of it
from LeBron against the Houston Rockets. Obviously,
did you see the one tweet of him getting the two offensive boards and them breaking the shots? He made the one pass. He started the break too. Yeah, started the break, kick, brick, gets the board, another shot, brick, gets another board, another pass, brick again. And it's just like, man, I just feel so bad for the
one under the basket after the first miss to Avery Bradley was hilarious too, because it was like a sick no look, and then as soon as it left AB's hands, dude, that thing just got sent into the second row. That is awesome. The epitome of the
what
Lakers
is encouraging
season.
Though is LeBron a lot of times in the past in those situations would just stand there and stare at his teammates as the fast break went down the other side of the floor. He actually hustled back on defense, so he knows right now he has to do literally everything for this team. Yeah. And let's get into it. He has to do everything for his team for a lot of reasons. The Lakers are missing a lot of guys. The whole league's missing a lot of guys. Dunny, what is your just opinion, switching gear here, on what the heck the state of the NBA kind of just looks like right now?
Yeah, man. I feel like about a week and a half ago, we had this discussion, right before Christmas. And we were kind of talking, we hope because of how these Christmas matchups are, we hope that the league doesn't get put on pause. And that didn't happen. But what did happen was we had all those great Christmas games, and none of them were really lived up to the hype because of all the depleted rosters on that slate of games. And so now we're at the point where, it's past Christmas, but this is still happening. There's still, guys we've never heard of getting signed to active rosters every day. Our favorite players, moving to and from the sidelines every day, going into protocols, testing positive, whatever it may be. There's a lot of adversity in the NBA right now. And it's obviously no one wants to see, the bubble 2.0, or no one really wants a pause in the action. But I feel like we're at the point where that's definitely going to be in the discussion. And I feel like, we could even start it here today. I can't say for sure if I want a pause. That's never something that I want to happen, is to see the NBA stop and then have to start back up again. But I think as far as what we're watching right now and what we're seeing teams having to go through, I think it might be better off, long term, if that is, something that's being discussed by the league.
Yeah, but all this is just, it's not what I think people got
too
used to not having COVID impact these games just from the beginning of this season. And this is just the reality of what these leagues are going to have to go through. in adjusting to the way it is. And I think all those adjustments all at one time in general for sports fans, like sports fans don't like things to change. Like there's no sports fans that really like things changing very much. No one really liked the schedule was later. No one really people were there. We're so set in stone to things supposed to be appearing the same way. And with COVID, it's a part of what the league should have been more prepared, I think, to handle like the inevitability of outbreaks happening. It's the same thing with the NHL. The NHL reinstituted now their taxi squads to have extra guys available and all those sorts of things and everything. It's like the NBA, there should have been 20 guys on a roster to begin with from the start of the year, rather than having these teams, be trying to scramble and get all these random guys on contracts. And Minnesota has to play, some guy on a 10-day that's never going to play again. I don't know why I said Minnesota. It was just the first team that popped in my head. Any team just signing these random 10 days to guys that are never going to play again. Like, why not? Why wouldn't they come in the beginning of the season and be like, let's give more people more jobs. Let's have a practice squad. Let's have a taxi squad that we can access, not just the G League. Like, let's have these guys available to our rosters at all times, because we're still living in the middle of a pandemic, and half of our league, not half of our league, but 10% of the league is not vaccinated, or whatever whatever it was that report. It's around 10%. It might have gone up. That rate might have gone down a little bit since that was beginning of the season, but I can't imagine a lot of guys have changed their mind since then. And we've seen how the different variants are even affecting vaccinated individuals anyways, and still getting them sick, even if cases are asymptomatic, like we saw with Baker Mayfield in the NFL and things like that. Those guys complaining on Twitter about the way it goes. I just wish the league was more prepared. I wish both leagues were more prepared. Today, the IIHF, which is the International Ice Hockey Federation, the World Junior tournament's going on right now. They canceled it because of COVID concerns for teams. And it's like, why did you even try to have this? They had, what they did for these guys? Team USA and Sweden were in a hotel where there was a wedding reception the other night. Like, what? Like, it's all these, and that's just one example, but it just seems like all these leagues were kind of just like, okay, we did the COVID year, let's just go forward, when we should have just had the guys ready. Like, there could have been guys on these rosters in the system, practicing every day, knowing how to play with his teammates. Like, LeBron could have been playing with Isaiah Thomas all year in practice and knowing what he's doing and stuff like that. I just think it would have better prepared the teams for the inevitability of something like this happening, and also just given guys a bunch of different jobs, and opportunities that they never would have had, rather than all these teams scrambling right now. It's it's a mess. It's a mess. And
that's a good point.
I don't blame them for being a mess, but there are things they could have done.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of, just having a larger roster to start the season. I feel like that's a really good idea, as far as just getting ahead of it. And it doesn't, that's not really something that overcomplicates all that much. No. And it shouldn't cause too many problems or conflict either. And it's just it's a built-in backup plan, basically. And like you said, you give guys who maybe wouldn't have gotten an opportunity, they get to showcase themselves a little bit. It brings a little bit of, more popularity, and sheds a little more light on the G League, because that's where most of these guys are coming from. I mean, it's better for the NBA. It's better for everyone if the G League's getting some recognition too. And so I guess that's one positive that's come from this, and I think could even be better if, they ran with the idea like you just had there. But speaking of G League guys, has there anyone that you've seen, maybe it's someone on the Cavs, I don't even know how many guys they've called up, or any guys that you've noticed? Obviously, Isaiah Thomas back in the league. I think his 10-day with the Lakers is up. He now just signed with the Dallas Mavericks today, I believe.
It did, yeah. This is awesome. So, good for him.
Is there any guys out there who you've enjoyed watching so far, or moments, or is there a guy who you think still needs to receive a contract that's still out there in the G League, or just retired that hasn't got the call yet?
Well, we were just talking about my unfortunate Cleveland Cavaliers and their guard issues. There's a former Cleveland Cavalier who's out there. He said he's open for calls. He's out of college. He's done with the semester. The Cavs need to bring back JR, bro. That's the answer. The Cavs need to bring back JR.
Let's go.
I wasn't even thinking.
A little surprise keeping up with JR segment.
Yes, please, bro. That is I'm not taking credit for this. This was a group chat before I hopped on here. Someone brought up J.R. Smith, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what the Cavs need. He'd bring a bunch. He's going to be such a positive energy in that locker room. He's going to be happy to play in basketball. He's had a great semester at school. He's going to come ready to grind. All he needs to do is show up and shoot threes. That's really all, and just be a live body. JR is my hope. But the guy I would love to see was your guy, Joe Johnson, showing up for the Celtics in kind of the craziest full circle NBA moment of our lifetime, where he debuted with the Celtics, was not known as like a great Celtic throughout his career, jumped around a lot of different places, ends up in the big three, and then comes back to the Celtics in what could be his last NBA action. Who knows? But that was a cool moment. But what about you? Anybody? Did you like? I mean, Joe Johnson probably, obviously, too, was kind of dope.
Yeah, that was definitely sick to see. And just like you said, I feel like more so like seeing Joe Johnson back on the court, who's ISO Joe, like he's just such like a notable player in his heyday. It's just the story of it. Like literally 20 years later, coming back to the team that drafted him.
So fucking wild.
And obviously a super short stint the first time with the Boston Celtics, and his most notable years are in Atlanta and Brooklyn. But definitely very cool to see that. Got in a game, hit his jump shot. The Garden went nuts. So that was very cool to see. Guys that like I'm happy for, and one, I knew they would get a shot, and it's cool to see because I've been preaching for this guy, but Mac McClung, he plays for the Lakers G League team, but he got brought up by the Chicago Bulls. I don't think, I think his 10-day expired with them, and they're starting to get healthy again. But I think Mac McClung's a kid who's going to end up in the league and stay here. So it's cool that he got to, get exposed to the big league stuff. And he's literally, I follow him on Instagram. He posts like his stat line for the G League games all the time. He's literally has to be averaging like 24 points a game. Like he's a pure talent. I'm glad he got a shot at it. But someone who I think deserves a call up, and maybe I've just been living under a rock, but I'm pretty sure LiAngelo Ball has not received a call up from the G League, which is super surprising, dude. Like, how many people a day are we seeing that we literally have no idea who they are? And of course, like LiAngelo, a lot of the reason he's relevant is one, because of his brothers and his father, but his name. But he's also, I mean, dude, like there's no denying that this guy has pure talent. He's a scorer at the very least, a fantastic shooter from what I remember. Yep. I'm pretty sure he's just still with I forget, is it the Greensboro Hornets?
Yes.
I think that's the Hornets G League affiliate, or the Greensboro Swarm.
Swarm, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's happy for Mac McClung, happy for Joe Johnson, and then a little bit surprised we haven't seen, even like heard LiAngelo Ball's name. But, maybe that's still something to come. Who knows?
Yeah, get LiAngelo out there, man. How did he not end up in Chicago when they were out with all those guys? That's kind of crazy. But, yeah, LiAngelo for sure. All right, I'm
also surprised we haven't heard from LeVar about that situation in general.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked. All right, so as with our finishing up here with this episode, we're gonna run through the East quick. We'll go through the West next episode too, just to see, just checking in, just to see what the outlook looks like, see what it is, and as usual, as it was coming into last season, as it was coming into this season, Dunny, the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks are both the overwhelming favorites in the East. Right now, the Bucks are actually behind the Bulls for the 2 seed. Yeah. But that is just by record. The Bulls also are just getting back on the court again, so they're missing a couple different games there. But the Bucks are half game behind. But we're going to still refer to the Nets and Bucks as our 2 favorites here. So, Dunny, let's start with the Nets. Whatever, take wherever you want to go. The Nets got plenty of storylines you could pick from. So where do you want to go with the Nets?
Well, I feel like it's important we talk about them now, because this is when we are going to see either the, complete everything's trending up because KD, I just said.
That's basically it. That's right.
Yeah, KD and Kyrie are both, projected to come back. They're going to be on the floor. Kyrie is only going to be on the floor where he's allowed. But I think this, this is make or break for the Brooklyn Nets, in my opinion, right now. And it might be for this entire era of the big three, because you would have to assume if things go really south here, and especially if, Kyrie doesn't work out his off the court issues as far as like getting vaccinated or finding a loophole to play in every single game. You would have to assume that if something goes south here, then this big three, it's safe to call a bust if they aren't able to pull something out and at least make another deep playoff push this year. But it's just so hard to tell because to me, there's no middle ground, right? I think it's either they're gonna implode and it's gonna be, an ugly sight and everyone's gonna be like, wow, this Brooklyn Nets team just did not work out. Or, they have these three of like the top 7 best players in the NBA all playing alongside one another. Kyrie half the time, of course, but I think, the sky's the limit with this group. It's been the same way since the beginning. Harden's been absolutely balling since he came back from COVID protocols. It seems like he's for sure, knocked off the cobwebs that he started the beginning of the season with. He was a little rusty, wasn't shooting as well. I think he's averaging like 35 in his first 2 games back from COVID. And yeah, I mean, KD hasn't really skipped a beat. Obviously, he was out with protocols, but I mean, Kyrie, he's just that circling X factor in this group, dude. Like, I have no idea. I anticipate that they keep it up as regular season, as far as the regular season goes. I think they'll hold that record. I still think they'll finish the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But, who really knows? What do you think? You think chaos or trending up for the Brooklyn Nets?
Well, it doesn't even have to do with fucking Kyrie. I was so down on James Harden, and he just goes to LA and reinvigorates himself and puts up a 35 ball on Christmas night, and then stays in Staples and puts up 38 against the Clippers. I didn't think that he had that in him, to be honest. And it looked like the burst was kind of back, like he was blowing by people, he was getting where he wanted to, and like, legit, maybe he just needed to play himself into shape. Maybe he was just out of shape.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say, I feel like he's just never in game shape when the season starts. And he's like, I don't need to do off-season work. I think he just lifts and eats and then plays himself into game.
And probably drinks a lot at strip clubs. Oh, yeah. and then that's where he gets the little belly from, and then he just cuts it down a little bit and he's good. Sweats just seeing him, knowing that he still has that in him, I think is the biggest thing for me, because Kyrie's like, as we came into the year, like Harden is better. I think Harden, maybe this would be a fun argument. I think this would be a great NBA argument. We'd probably get a lot of different opinions on the internet and everything from this. Who you think is actually a better, Harden or Kyrie? Because I think there's a lot of staunch Kyrie defenders. I think this is actually a great argument.
I'm gonna make this a TikTok, and then we'll get everyone.
Dude, TikTok. Oh my god, TikTok. Hold up, but my friend sent me a video today. This is what we're dealing with in TikTok, and this is an account I like, Courtside Sports. It's a good account. It's a young kid though, and he put up a video today that was like, "Do you know about Sean Marion?" And it was Sean Marion highlights. I'm like, my friend texts me, he's like,
Matrix?
Gen Z just figuring out about Sean Marion. And I'm like, bro, that's how old I am. These kids don't even know Sean Marion. They don't know Matrix. They were talking about the jumper. I'm like, yes, bro. How do you not know what we're anyways? That's just yes, do a TikTok on this. But I think I would say Harden, just purely playing with KD wise, because I think he's a better playmaker, and he's used to like that system of holding the ball more. Kyrie last year took over as the shooting guard pretty much when Harden showed up, and they kind of started working together actually. So Kyrie has always been the bonus for me. And if Harden can play like this, and now Kyrie really is just the added bonus because he's only showing up in half the games.
Kyrie's like a 50% coupon, dude.
You buy 2, get 1 50% off.
Yeah,
that's Kyrie.
Kyrie's a BOGO deal for the rest of the season. Oh man. But yeah, that actually is like a very good debate, because I feel like there's so many things. Like, I feel like initially you think Harden, you're like, who's the better player? Obviously, put accolades aside because Kyrie has the championship.
That's where people are gonna go. They're gonna go right to the Game 7 shot.
But
they're just gonna be like,
Harden has the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, it's like I think Harden off the bat, and then I'm like, I want to say, oh well, he's not a better scorer. Kyrie's a better shoot. He's not a better shooter. And then you think, oh, better pure point guard, but like you just said, Kyrie
Yeah.
kind of handed the keys over to Harden as soon as he got to Brooklyn, and he started
And
playing point. Like
and
he's
so you go to
he's
their
for sure a better
handles.
playmaker. Yeah,
And you go to
it's
their
just
bag
handles.
too, and but they're close. Like Harden's bag
Yeah.
is crazy too.
I
Like
think
if
what
there's
they're
anybody close,
closest on is handle, and I think I'd give Kyrie the edge there. And I actually think it's a lot closer than people think is finishing at the rim because
oh, Kyrie's
Harden's
amazing.
Harden's very good at that, but I think Kyrie might have the edge at finishing at the rim.
I think so too. Kyrie gets some shots off that no 6-foot man should ever get off in the NBA. Like
No.
it's fucking crazy. The shooting is very close too. Like Harden has a lot more
Yeah.
volume, I think, too, which helps him because he was just fucking chucking threes for 6 years.
Yeah, I'm sure
straight.
percentages for their career, I bet Kyrie shoots better. But yeah, that's hard to distinguish because Harden could get going from deep.
This is I've never thought about this, like comparing those two, but that's a really good, like as a snapshot too of like two. They're probably, besides Russ, like the two most polarizing NBA stars we have. I mean, Russ is a different reason, I think, entirely. Man. Let's see. Kyrie right now in his career, he's averaging from 39%. What were you gonna say?
No, it's funny you brought up Russ. I feel like he just can't escape the hate on Twitter.
Kyrie's a better career regular season 3-point shooter. He's 39%, and Harden's 36%. So he's got him nudged there a little bit. But it's the volume too. Harden took 15 threes a game. Yeah, he was.
He also has been on teams where it was like just him, and he's also been a part of teams where he did not care at all.
That's very true. Kyrie, you got it. Like he was in the pressure cooker of being in under LeBron for however many those years. Then goes to Boston. He's basically supposed to be like the savior of the Celtics for those 2 years, and it implodes. And then he goes to New York City.
Like, as much as I hate to say it, like you could argue that was like some of the best basketball of his career. I mean, some of the highlights that we got from Boston Kyrie are unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
And now he's, like we said, there's
the one against the
50% player.
What's the one against not the Warriors? Maybe it was the Warriors. I'm trying to think of where he falls down and then dribbles around, and then
that's Lakers.
Lakers,
he trips
that's right.
And like stumbles through their whole defense. I remember Brook Lopez just like reaching his tall ass over, like trying to swipe the ball from Kyrie. Comes all the way across the court and then shoots like at the shot clock to beat the buzzer.
And it bounces around, right?
Yeah. So there's the three that we have here, that because I think the second game of the season against the Milwaukee Bucks, they had like that crazy throwback court. That's why I remember it. Yeah. He did a spin move through. This was also to beat the shot clock, to beat two defenders, and literally like both defenders had their hands on the ball. He spun through both of them and just like flicked it up, and it bounced around the rim probably 8 times and went in. And then for sure the most iconic is when he did a hesitation on a behind the back dribble. He faked a behind the back dribble, spun on Steph, and then like hit a fadeaway jumper on the baseline in Steph's face in Golden State. And that was obviously when the Warriors were on top of the world, and the Celtics like had their number for some reason.
That's what I was gonna say. Those were wars, bro. Boston, Golden State were wars. Those were always crazy games.
For some reason, we were like the only dude. We were giving them like 2 of their 8 losses. That they were getting for a season at that point. But yeah, I mean, Boston Kyrie for sure. Bittersweet, but can't deny his greatness.
Both you and I have been spurned by Kyrie Irving. I'll never forget the day that he got traded. I was just like in disbelief driving around Northeast Ohio, and it was just nobody could believe it. We were all just everybody was like, what the fuck is going on? He got traded? Why? What are we doing here? We've made 3 straight NBA. It was a mess. But it didn't work out for Boston either. And now he's on Brooklyn. It's not working out for them either. So
yeah, he's only giving him half the deal right now.
Oh man! All right. Well, we got off on a little bit of a Kyrie tangent here. Do we want to talk about what do we got to say about the Bucks here? The Bucks. they've got Giannis. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's all
after
I.
watching them closely on Christmas Day and they
Yeah.
mounted a 19-point comeback on the Celtics to win. Um,
Celtics with
they're
the
gonna
cover though.
yes.
Heroic
Yeah,
cover at the end.
we said that would happen. We weren't sure about the outcome. We said they would cover. They did. Bucks will be scary down the stretch though, because
Yeah.
I think Giannis looked like he was figuring it out against Boston. He hasn't shot the ball well from the free throw line or the three this season. I think he's shooting like under 30% from three, which it's like kind of expected, but I feel like we've heard one too many times that Giannis is starting to get his jumper. So like I'm kind of expecting him to at least be shooting above 30% from three. He hasn't been doing that. Free throws have been down, but if he plays like he did Christmas Day and the rest of their team continues to get healthy, because they've already gotten Middleton back, he's kind of back to doing his thing. We mentioned DiVincenzo played his first game of the year on Christmas Day. Brooke Lopez should be returning at some point. And then this is a team led by Coach Bud that we've seen the last 2-3 years now that they kind of just dominate the regular season and they never really burn out. And if anything, they get stronger as the season goes on. So I anticipate that from the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like they're flying under the radar right now, but playing very good basketball.
Yeah,
that
no, the
kind of
Bucks
happens
are.
to the champs.
And we're gonna talk about these other teams in a second here. Like Chicago has been a good story. Miami is a solid team, but
Yeah.
I'm about ready for you to sign me up for Milwaukee, Brooklyn again, because I just think these two teams are head and shoulders above the East, and we talked about them at the beginning of the year, especially with whatever version of Kyrie's coming back. But if Harden's playing like he is right now, and the rest of this roster gets back healthy, it's a great matchup. I mean, they showed last year in the playoffs how awesome of a matchup it could be. Sign me up for that. I think they're going to be both great. But we've got in the other 4 spots right now that are not in the play-in, that are just making the playoffs. Obviously, Chicago, we said earlier, is in the 2 seed actually, so they're in better shape. They're in very good shape. Miami, Cleveland, who we talked about earlier with the injury to Ricky Rubio, and Philly hanging around there. Obviously, we know what the hell is going on with Philly. They're tied technically with Charlotte. They're a half game ahead of Charlotte for the 7th seed. But I think we can agree, Philly is above Charlotte probably in our hierarchy. So we'll keep that delineation line right there. With those 4 teams, who do you trust the most?
I think I just got to go with Miami. And no disrespect to what Chicago's doing. And I really, really enjoy Chicago's roster and the guys they have on that team and what they were able to do, especially I think they got a lot of hate going into this year. I think everyone was excited about the hype of Chicago, but
yeah,
they kind of questioned it. They were like, will this work? Are they deep enough? They're crushing it right now as a regular season team, but when push comes to shove, once stuff gets tough, you want a team with playoff experience. You want a well-coached team, and I think that's been Heat culture always, especially since Eric Spoelstra's been there. Jimmy Butler, he's done it all. He went to the finals just a few years ago. Tyler Hero, as much as I hate to say it, he is balling this year. And they have him as a 6th man. They brought in Kyle Lowry. I think Chicago and Miami are both teams who could have a deeper bench. That's kind of both of their weak points. But I mean, if I have to pick one of these 4 teams, it's Miami for me.
I do agree with you about Miami. Actually, I was trying to convince myself of Chicago, but I think Miami is the best bet. Just defensively, they can just be a menace to Milwaukee and Brooklyn if they run into them in a series. If they're fully healthy, that's going to be the key. If Bam and Jimmy and Kyle Lowry are all healthy, all 3 of those guys have to be on the court. And obviously, Bam is a younger guy, but Jimmy and Lowry have a lot of miles on them. That's the most important thing. But since you gave a nice little thing about Miami, I'll go with Chicago. I would have taken this time to hype up the Cavs without the Rubio news. It remains to be seen. But I think Cleveland is. I think Miami and Chicago are the clear 3-4 in this conference, anyways, even before the Rubio news. So Chicago, it's just going to depend what they can do on the opposite end of the spectrum. Miami, where I said I'm really excited about to see what they can do defensively in the playoffs. I don't know what Chicago can do defensively in a playoff series and how they will get played. Like, they are so dependent on their offense, how they will get played in a 7-game series, how they would like adjust to that. We haven't seen that. Now, Billy Donovan, give him credit. I honestly think he's one of the best coaches in the league. He did wonders with a Thunder roster that nobody anticipated to be good.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's doing wonders again with this team that no one thought was going to be this good. So I trust him, and I trust him to make those kind of adjustments. I think he's just a smart coach. But I just want to see like what the personnel can do in a situation. Right now they'd be playing the Bucks in a second round series. If it was chalk, that would be a really fucking fun series, especially for me moving to the Midwest. I'd spend all my paycheck, I think, for those 2 weeks, just back and forth between Milwaukee and Chicago.
Just go to every game.
But I think that is the matchup there. I think, as you were asking earlier, do I think the Nets will stay the 1 seed? I think the Nets will cruise to the 1 seed just because Durant is so much better than all these scrub teams have no shot when Durant's on the floor against them. Same thing with Giannis, obviously, but I just think the Nets regular season, they get hot shooting wise, everything. I think the Nets hang on to that 1 seed, stay a little above. The Bucks are going to kind of rest guys and, try to get ready for the stretch run here. I think they end up the 2. And we get whoever faces Milwaukee in that 2-3 matchup, whether it be a Miami or a Chicago. I think both those teams can beat Milwaukee, depending on how dominant Giannis is. So those are really the 2 teams I'm looking at. And I really want to see Chicago's offense, how they kind of adjust going into the playoffs. It's going to be the East is going to be, if those are the 4 teams we end up with, Chicago, Miami, Cleveland, or Chicago, Miami, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. I was looking at our list of the other 4 teams, getting confused. That's going to be a really fun thing. So as we wrap up here, who would be a team that we haven't mentioned that you think could make that jump up there, or even is like ready to like get into the playoff territory, out of the play-in territory, maybe can win a round? Somebody that's not in there right now, because Philly, who knows what's going to happen with them. Cleveland could be taking a slide here with the Rubio injuries piling up. Who's ready to jump up there?
Damn, man. I can't even sit here and lie and say that I think it's the Celtics.
I was wondering if you were just going to take it as a layup for the Celtics, but
no, I mean, I still think, I do think the roster they have, that they're capable. I just have no idea what's going on. And right now they're definitely getting hit with, all the COVID things, but that's not an excuse because so is the rest of the league. Honestly, dude, and this might even hurt more to say, it might be the Knicks.
Wow.
It might be the Knicks. And I don't even feel good saying that, but I think the Knicks or the Hornets. I think more so the Hornets is that I want to see that happen just because they're so electric, dude. And if they made a trade for a notable big, I think I still don't know why they haven't, because I feel like that's what they've been missing for like the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rozier, LaMelo, I would love to see those guys in a meaningful playoff series. I think that team would be really fun. And the Knicks, just because I think they have the depth. I mean, like the performance they put on Christmas Day, shorthanded. Obviously, they beat up on a Hawks team that was extremely shorthanded themselves. But, we see Kemba Walker had a triple-double for them, his first one since 2014 on Christmas Day. Like, they have guys who are more than capable, and I just feel like they haven't really figured out a true good enough rotation for them. Because when we saw Kemba Walker was out of that rotation. Julius Randle, we mentioned he's been struggling this year, but they have guys like Obi Toppin who are unbelievable. And I feel like some of the guys like deep down on this roster, you forget they have. But then at moments like this where we're seeing depleted rosters, like Kevin Knox is back to coming out of nowhere. They still have Mitchell. They have Mitchell Robinson, who's a beast down below.
Yeah.
I think, it's not too late in the season where we could see a version of the Knicks that I think everyone was expecting. So I guess just don't sleep on the Knicks, possibly the Hornets, if they can prove that they're real.
Yeah. And we should say, I mean, the Cavs are 20-14. They're only 2 games ahead of the Sixers, who are 18-16. And then from Philly to Toronto, even all the way down to Toronto at 14 and 17. It's only 2.5 games. So you've
Yeah.
got Philly, Charlotte, Washington, Boston, New York, Atlanta, Toronto are all just in a kind of jumbled mess around that play-in territory. So anybody can make a move. And I think New York's a great example, especially if Randall steps it up, if RJ Barrett steps it up a little bit, they return to their forms from last year. I mean, this is a formidable team. A team I haven't liked all year and I didn't really like last year, but I think they're much better than they've been playing this year is the Hawks. I mean, the Hawks are still they've got such a great roster. They've had injury issues all year long and COVID issues recently. I still think they can kind of piece it together. I don't think they're missing. Right now they're missing the playoffs. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. They're the team I'm looking for.
Yeah, I
think
wanted
Trae
to
Young-
say that too because I was saying this in the offseason, dude. I think the roster they have right now, what the splash they made last year. I
Yeah.
think you were just about to touch on Trae Young. Like, I think they're in that category with the
Yeah.
Knicks in my eyes for sure.
Yeah, he's just one of those special guys. Like he's not going to be held down long in this East. I think they
No.
still, we always see a team with a second half surge. I think they'd be a good bet to see to make one of those. But that'll do it for today on Happy Hour Hoops. Happy New Year, everybody. Next episode of Happy Hour Hoops will be in 2022. So Happy New Year. Hope you enjoyed the year of basketball in 2021. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all social media platforms. Subscribe to all our podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all those good places. Check us out on Trainwreck Sports. For Donovan Hold'em, I'm Jake Micah. This has been Happy Hour Hoops. Stay hydrated.